I'm very depressed about the future of America. I see it actually crumbling or having a real revolution. Because they're not going to wake up. They're not stopping. The neoliberalism, which, first of all, capitalism is failing worldwide right now, except in the places that have strong social democracies and strong unions, right? It's failing in Greece. It's going to happen in Italy, Spain. So, Brexit just happened. There's lots of...
Did you see my story about that?
No, I didn't.
I wrote a good one about... I went to England right before their election. The Guardian brought me over to England, and I toured the deindustrialized zones of England, the places where Thatcher just took a sledgehammer to their way of life. And these are the places that voted for Brexit in a huge way. And I went around interviewing people about who they were going to vote for and why. And it was fascinating. It's very similar to what's been going on in the United States. So we always think of Brexit as a right-wing move, but there were all sorts of people on the left that voted for it. I mean, people that you and I would think of as being on the left. They're very anti-big business, very pro-labor, very pro-union, and voted for the Brexit. I interviewed like a dozen of them, as I traveled around the country. It was really interesting.
And so you would contradict the narrative that it was all racists.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fear about immigration there, but it's their fear is specifically about like people from Poland and Romania and Eastern Europe, like Estonia and stuff like that.
Right.
There's a lot of that, but there's also just this. I mean, how should I put it? This hatred of global capitalism. And when the IMF comes in and says you better not vote for Brexit, a lot of these people are going to vote for. That's the exact reason why they're going to vote for it. But I also met lots of really good people who voted for it. People who had very good intentions. People who were very worried about the euro, for example. And frankly, Jimmy, between you and me, the euro is bad news. And they were very, very right to be worried about that. Now, Britain has not adopted the euro. They dodged that bullet.
So why is the euro bad news? I know why it's bad news because, what do you think?
Well, when a country can't
print their own money,
when they can't control their own currency, they're at the whim of
the central bank.
The central bank, which is controlled by France and Germany, basically, right, and the Belgians and stuff like that. And so you have countries like Spain that gave up their own currency, or Italy that gave up their own currency, and they've been absolutely ruined.
Yes.
And there's no way out for them. There is a way out, and it's the same as the Brexit, unfortunately. Now, Britain dodged that bullet, but they could clearly see what was happening to a lot of these other countries, and I think they were, in some ways, I don't want to endorse Brexit because I think it was, on balance, a bad move. But I can understand their fear. What's interesting to me is that the American commentariat are 100% against it. Like, this was the dumbest thing in the world. How could they have done? And you go over there. There were good arguments for it. I mean, the Labor Party, I don't know when they changed their mind exactly. The Labor Party used to be very anti the European Union. They saw it for what it is. They had a very accurate understanding of what it would become in Europe. Now, and so a lot of the people I was interviewing were former members of the Labor Party, or some of them still members of the Labor Party, who thought that the Labor Party had made a mistake and should go back to its old distrust. I'm sorry, there's no way your audience is interested in this.
About Brexit?
Yeah.
No. Well, I'll make it its own video. It'd be great. No, this is great.
Oh, okay. Well, anyhow, it was. Let me just. You can read the article on the Guardian website. it was fascinating because I met people who call themselves socialists who voted for it.
Yeah,
I mean, by the way, they use that word over there all the time. It's not a dirty word in England. Here, let me show you some of the stuff. So I went into this socialist or this Labor Party club called the Red Shed. See this? The Red Shed. Yeah, and it's a shed. You know, it's a building from World War II, like a hut from World War II that the local Labor Party got their hands on. This is in a city in the north of England, and they painted it this vivid, shocking scarlet color, and it's right next door to a big shopping mall. And I go in there, and it's basically a pub, and these are some of the sweetest, nicest people you will ever meet, and they call themselves socialists. And, they had all of this labor strike memorabilia on the walls. When they have strikes in England, or when they used to have strikes in England, they issue commemorative plates. The strikes. You know how, I collect commemorative plates. Like I have one for the state of Missouri. I have one for Detroit. I have, all these sort of silly things. They have them for strikes, for, industrial actions. The coal miners' strike of 1984. We issued this plate.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. Anyhow, it was great fun, and I met really interesting people, fascinating people, people that are, in a lot of ways, a lot like the Midwesterners I grew up with, but also, very different. They have this sense of solidarity over there that's so different than what we have here in America. Almost every English person I talked to fully expected his or her countrymen to come to their rescue if they ever got into really hard times. That was the unspoken agreement. Well, we're being screwed here in the North. They got to do something about it. They all just seem to take this for granted. If one part of the country is going down, the other parts of the country have an obligation to come to their rescue. And it took me, because we're so cynical here, you and me, Jimmy, here in America, we all know that when Detroit goes down, the rest of the country just walks away. It's like, well, see you later, But they have this sense over there that the rest of England has a bounden duty to help them out. And this was it was shocking to me and also very refreshing in a kind of way. I mean, it is something that we just simply do not have in this country. Or we maybe had it once, after World War II, but we don't have it anymore.
No, it's we definitely don't have it anymore. Well, listen, I'm looking forward to reading that article. I hope you write it really quickly. And
it came out right before the election.
The one you wrote about Brexit?
It came out right before the election. And by the way, it's not like I didn't try to predict the outcome of the election, but I was. It became clear when I was over there that that Labor was going to do really well. That was obvious as I was going around talking to people.
I'm very encouraged by Jeremy Corbyn, and I think that's why they're starting to smear him in the United States press now. If you've noticed, they're starting to call him an anti-Semite, and so because they're afraid that it might spread, right?
Yeah, well, too late. They missed their chance. They did a lot of that in England beforehand, and they actually did it. I mean, people were very familiar with the arguments against him, and they finally decided at the end of the day, it's like, well, he used to hang around with terrorists. That's bad, all right. But everything else is worse. What he's promising that Labor came out with a very decent manifesto.
We covered it. It was specific.
Yeah, it was much better than the Better Deal, but it was it was actually really good, and it was very plainly spoken. And Jeremy Corbyn was actually, I watched him on TV a number of times. He was very good. Yeah, but he was very good and persuasive, and he was strongly assisted in his run by the fact that Theresa May, the Tory, who called the special election, didn't show up at their debate. And you know who advised her? You know who was her campaign advisor?
Well, one of them was Jim Messina. Jim Messina.
Yeah. Yes, Obama's guy was advising the Tory. What the fuck?
Well, I don't know if you know, but Jim Messina's job inside the Barack Obama White House was to make sure the public option didn't make it into the healthcare bill.
Oh, Billy, God. And now that really worked out well, didn't it?
Yeah, right.
If they had done that, I mean, there's a bunch of things like that. If they had done that, had Obama got tough with the banks, had Obama done a bigger bailout, we would have amended the Constitution and given him a third term. I mean, he would still be president today. It's like, nice going, guys. Nice going, Messina.
Yeah,
these guys have the Midas touch in reverse.
In reverse, right? So so they ruin the brand of Democrats in the United States, and then he rushes over to lose an election for the Tories.
Destroys the Tories. I mean, yeah, it's great.
So let me ask you we have to run, but let me do two quick questions. You make the case that, journalists aren't economically secure. In fact, that their jobs are being wiped out left and right. Yeah. Yet you don't see journalism writing about the problems of people whose jobs are being disappeared. Why is that? Why do you think they don't reflect their own economic insecurity in their journalism?
Look, that's a $64 question, and I've asked myself this 100 times. But it is true. Both statements are true. That journalism is falling apart all over America. We all know that. And I can give you examples from my own life if you care, but you don't want to hear that stuff. And we also know that the Washington press corps does not care about it. Never talks about it. The sort of insider contented press corps that covers the White House, that does the national news. And by the way, they live here in my neighborhood. I live in Bethesda, Maryland now, and this is where they live. And you see them at parties, and you see them walking down the street. And these are very contented people. Okay, these are people who are well paid. People at the top of journalism are still being very well paid, and for whatever reason, they feel no solidarity with their members of their own cohort who are being destroyed. And this goes back to, this is one of the big questions in Listen Liberal. It's like, the professional class, which is so well represented in the Democratic Party, a lot of professionals are being ruined in this country. Journalists are, lawyers are, teachers are, academics are, and yet there's no sympathy for these people from their peers who are still doing well. So the people at the top of journalism do not give a damn about the rest of the profession falling apart. This is absolutely fascinating to me. And, part of it is that they naturally see the world in terms of merit. Everybody's fate is their own doing. But then a lot of it is that that they, if you hang around these people in the D.C. press corps, they all went to fancy schools. Just take a look, Jimmy, sometime at the educational pedigree of the people on the Washington Post's editorial board. Okay, it's almost like you're looking at Obama's cabinet. These people have the most amazing collection of credentials. They think they deserve what they have. They think that they're where they are and they're being supported by a billionaire because they are the best. They're the smartest. And it's only natural that the consensus would support their point of view. The world makes sense for these people. And they have zero sympathy for people down the totem pole from them, or for someone like Bernie Sanders and his solutions, or for working class people in the hinterland. You can document this in a million different ways, but they have a class solid. Journalists have a kind of class solidarity all of their own that is not often discussed in this country.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. It's fascinating to me. It's mind-boggling. You also quote.
Well, this is why this is the source of what the right wingers always call media bias, and it's not because they're liberals. It's because they all come from the same social background and they all view the world in the same way.
Right.
Sometimes that's liberal. Sometimes that's conservative.
Right. So I'm missing who this quote is from, but I want to read it to you. It says, "I can't for the life of me fathom why any journalist would want to become insiders when it's so damn much fun to be outsiders."
Yes, well, that's from David Broder a long time ago. And David Broder was the sort of dean of Washington newspaper columnists at one time. And but he was right when he said that in the 1980s. But he's completely wrong when describing. He's dead now, but he's completely wrong when describing the journalists of right now.
No kidding.
Everybody wants to be an insider. If you aren't one, you're done for.
I'm not an insider.
Wait, Jimmy, I'm not either. And there's not a single publication in this country that I can write for that will pay, that like the Washington Post pays or something like that. It just doesn't exist anymore.
So that's why you got to go rogue. We went around them, baby. That's why. Thank God for YouTube, right? Because now I don't need a gatekeeper.
Yes.
And since we started doing this show,
exactly right.
I was at night.
Exactly right. But it's how hard a newspaper is an expensive proposition, and this is yes. But you're exactly right.
No, there's a starting to be crowdfunding journalists, right? Cenk Uygur just crowdfunded $2 million for some investigative journalists. I've seen other people who are crowdfunding, so I think that might be like right now. I'm an outsider. I love it. I always tell Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks, don't go to those goddamn parties. You don't want to get to know those people. And why do you want to hang around with them anyway? They're the people who were supposed to. That's why I have a job, is because the mainstream news media sucks so hard. That's why we're popular. I've been a comedian for 30 years. I've had several Comedy Central specials. It wasn't until this YouTube show that I started filling theaters wherever I go. So there is a bright spot.
But that's wonderful, Jimmy. That's great. And I was talking to Cenk, and he said something very similar to that. Some months ago, whenever the last time it was I saw him, and that is happening to a lot of us. That the world of journalism is growing narrower and narrower. I mean, the world of acceptable opinion narrower and narrower and narrower. And I'm basically outside of it, and I have been for quite a while. But there are very few options in mainstream media for someone like me in this country any longer. And I'm not complaining; it's just the way it is. I mean, I'm doing all right. Don't worry about me. Don't cry for me, Argentina. But there's a reason I'm writing for a foreign newspaper now.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, Thomas, this has been enlightening and enjoyable as all get out. So I really appreciate you spending time with us. Thanks for being so generous with your time. And what do you want me to tell? Where should people go? What do you want them to read right now?
Oh, the Guardian, man. I'm writing for the Guardian all the time. There's good stuff coming out. The other newspaper I write for, by the way, is a French newspaper.
No kidding.
Le Monde Diplomatique. But it's not in English, and I think they have a paywall or something like that. So.
Oh, okay.
But you can read me in foreign countries all the time.
So everybody pick this up if you haven't, and also check.
It's a good book, Jimmy. I'm proud of it.
Well, there's lots of stuff in here about antitrust that Barack Obama could. Could you give me that quick list? Maybe you said you made a list of all the antitrust enforcement.
Yeah. Well, no, all the things that Obama could do when he was president and had lost Congress. I came up with a list of things that he could do that wouldn't. This is when I used to write for Salon back in the day. Things that he could do that wouldn't require Congress, and antitrust was the main one. I'm trying to remember the other. One of them was to force universities to reverse their tuition hikes, because the government has enormous power over higher ed. They regulate them in all sorts of different ways. And there was a third one. I've forgotten what it is now, because he's not president anymore, right? It doesn't matter anymore. But antitrust was the main one. Oh, I know. Duh. Prosecute the Wall Street bankers.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been huge. Obama would be a hero, had he done that. He could have done it right up until the end.
And it would have helped our economy.
Limitations was still, And yes, it would have been enormous, because it would have reinvigorated public demands for breaking up those banks.
Yes, it would have.
If you have a trial like that, and it's like on the front page of the paper every day, and stuff is exposed, and it changes the way people understand the world that they live in. Once they start seeing the ugly details, and the only way to bring it out is a prosecution of that kind.
Well, I guess we'll never know.
It's lost opportunity. It's enormous. I mean, shit.
Well,
on that note, it's like that's the Obama years in a nutshell. The greatest missed opportunities of all time.
So you asked about Kamala Harris. I'll end by saying this: that Kamala Harris, when she was the Attorney General here in California, refused to prosecute Steve Mnuchin at One West Bank, even though her own office recommended that she should, because they had found over 1,000 cases of criminal foreclosures, and they thought if they investigated, they'd find 1,000 more. She didn't. She didn't prosecute Steve Mnuchin because her donor owned that bank, plus he donated to her, and now he's our Treasury Secretary.
Secretary of the Treasury.
So now, and then she's going to be
That's a story, man. That's a story right there.
So, and she won't answer why she didn't prosecute him. She won't answer. The Intercept has done articles about it.
If she had, she'd be one of a kind. I mean, there's very few prosecutions of that kind.
Right.
I mean, you can probably count them on one hand.
Yeah, but they did prosecute people who lied on their loan application.
Oh yeah. The little people, yes, they prosecuted them all the time. I was just reading in the paper the other day. They're prosecuting somebody. Oh God, it was here in D.C. For lying on a mortgage application 10 years ago.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, they prosecute people for that all the time.
Yeah,
but not the big guys, never.
So how is that? I just don't understand how there's not a revolution. If I lost my house, I would make sure there was a revolution. I don't know how that's not happening, but I'm going to have to go read a book. How do you start a revolution? Because I'm ready.
Well, Jimmy, this is a huge question. People thought they were getting something like that in 08. They thought that's what Barack Obama was.
Yeah,
they thought it again when they voted for Trump, and was just like we just get
Yeah.
Trump just played people. I don't want to say Obama played people because he actually did some good things, but it's just immensely depressing. And to be one of these people, in these small towns, watching your way of life be destroyed by this, global capitalism, it sucks. And you lash out, and they do lash out, and they take drugs, and they ruin themselves, and it's awful, awful, awful. And we give them these little shreds of hope, that they reach out for, and it's just like it's a bad time.
Yeah,
to be there. It's a great time here in D.C., richest city in America.
Yeah, I know. That's the richest zip code. I know the whole deal. It's really it's kind of disgusting.
Good times. Did you see the Dow Jones Industrial Average hit 22,000 today?
I remember when they broke 13,000, everyone was going nuts.
Hell, I remember when they broke 2,000. It was when Reagan was president.
So I think, so watch out, bro. Global capitalism's going to fall quickly. If that doesn't get you climate change.
Jimmy Dore. That's the
Okay. Well, thank you again for taking time, and thanks for explaining everything to us. I appreciate it. It's Thomas Frank. Check out his book and read his writing in The Guardian, ladies and gentlemen. Thomas, thanks again. Hope to see you soon.
You got it, man. Anytime.
Hey, everybody. The next live Jimmy Dore show is August 16th. That's a Wednesday. New time, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. show. 9 p.m. show, August 16th in Burbank, California. Get your tickets right there or at jimmydorcomedy.com.
This weekend we had a horrific act of violence, actually several acts of violence in Charlottesville. I want to tell you about them. First of all, this is of course from a Unite the Right rally. So when they are talking about uniting the right, who are they talking about? Well, they themselves have said that it was white nationalists, the alt-right, and then of course KKK and Nazi images, flags, hoods, all showed up at the rally. And if that is their version of the right, well, I guess they were united in a sense. A lot more people showed up than I honestly would have anticipated, which is also bone-chilling. It started on Friday. The main rally was supposed to be Saturday, and it was. But on Friday night, I want to show you some of the pictures from the rally that they held there. Yes, they brought torches. That imagery is not an accident. It is totally intended. And they started chanting White Lives Matter, and then blood and soil, blood and soil. That's a Nazi chant. And then there were those in the crowd who unmistakably gave the Nazi salute. Now, does that make every person in the crowd a Nazi or a member of the KKK? I suspect not. Was the intent of that rally incredibly clear? Yes. So you don't go to a rally with torches about white power and not know what they're talking about. So anyone who claims, oh golly gee, I had no idea, well then you're one of the most ignorant people on the planet. They knew exactly what they were doing. And if you notice, they were around a statue. Well, that was part of the point of this whole thing, which is to make sure that Confederate statues are not taken down in the South. As a statue of Robert E. Lee, and people that were at the rally talking about protecting white heritage and what he fought for. And of course, among the things he fought for, in fact, primary in the things that he fought for, was slavery. So white supremacy back in the day, of course, meant literally that. We rule over you, and we will enslave other races. Now, that's not what's happening today in the South, except for these guys who